she isn't liked by the majority of people is a cop-out. It's not the case. She does not garner any kind of racism in day-to-day life. She's less dark-skinned than me, and I certainly haven't suffered from any racism. So I don't think race has anything to do with it. I think she's just a dislikable person and is trying to find another excuse for that.
Andrew Tate made divorce predictions about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle that seemed absolutely insane at the time. Critics called him everything from misogynistic to completely delusional. But here's what's got everyone talking now. Those predictions are coming true with terrifying accuracy. And the timeline he laid out for their marriage breakdown is playing out exactly as he said it would. When Tate first claimed that Meghan would systematically destroy Harry's connections to his family, his military identity, and his masculine confidence, it sounded like the rantings of someone with an agenda. But fast forward to today, and Harry is estranged from his father, isolated from his brother, and appearing at therapy summits talking about his trauma instead of leading with strength.
The basic premise is that Meghan and Harry are innocent and the royal family is guilty and bullying them and picking on them, and that England as a whole has bullied them and picked on them. The reason being because they are racist. Why is nobody else saying that Meghan Markle isn't black? She's whiter than me.
The transformation is exactly what Tate predicted would happen. What makes this even more explosive is that Tate didn't just predict general relationship problems. He called out specific patterns and behaviors that he claimed would lead to their inevitable separation. Recent reports about their professional divorce, their solo appearances, and Harry's desperate denials at the New York summit all align perfectly with the roadmap Tate laid out years ago. Back in 2022, when Harry and Meghan were still riding high on their Netflix deals and Oprah interviews, Andrew Tate made a prediction that sent shockwaves through social media. He didn't just criticize their marriage. He outlined a specific timeline for how it would collapse, and his reasoning was both brutal and precise.
She was waiting for him on a biological level to stand up and be a man and say, listen, you've joined the royal family. You're right. You had to bow to the Queen of England. Correct. Because it's the royal family. Get over it. That's all he had to do. He could have saved himself all this mess. He could have saved himself all the running away and looking like a fool and upcoming divorce and all this garbage if he would have just put his foot down. He never did.
Tate's core argument centered around what he called fundamental incompatibility between Meghan's ambitions and Harry's limitations. He claimed that Meghan had never intended the marriage to be permanent, but was using it as a stepping stone to build her own independent power base in Hollywood and American culture. His prediction was that once she had extracted maximum value from the royal connection, she would systematically distance herself from Harry and the constraints of royal life. The most shocking part of his analysis was how he predicted the exact sequence of events. First, he said they would create dramatic conflicts with the royal family to justify their independence. Then they would move to America and build separate brands while maintaining the appearance of unity. Finally, Meghan would begin appearing solo at high-profile events while Harry was relegated to lesser roles, ultimately leading to a professional separation that would make divorce inevitable.
No one on earth thought that. No one on earth would look at Prince Harry's pasty ass, this chick with the tiniest smidgen of melanin, and say that's gonna be a black baby. Nobody thought that.
What made his prediction even more controversial was his claim that Harry was being deliberately weakened and isolated to make him more dependent and easier to control. He argued that someone with Harry's military background and royal training should have been able to maintain his independence, but that sustained psychological pressure was breaking down his natural defenses. When Tate described Harry as a perfect example of modern masculinity in crisis, he wasn't just throwing around insults, he was making a detailed diagnosis of what he saw as systematic emasculation. His analysis focused on how Harry had transformed from a confident military officer into someone who seemed to define himself entirely through his trauma and need for validation.
Harry sold his family out for money, and Meghan told him to do it, and although she instructed him to, she is still disgusted by seeing a man commit treachery on the royal family. A woman will sit there and go, I told you to betray your family, and you listened, but now you're a snake. How can I trust and love a snake? So by complying, by giving her what she thought she wanted, he destroyed his own self-image in her eyes, and she will never respect it.
Tate's most brutal assessment centered on Harry's public behavior, the constant apologizing, the detailed explanations of his feelings, and the willingness to air private family matters for public sympathy. In Tate's view, these behaviors represented the exact opposite of traditional masculine virtues, like discretion, stoicism, and protective instincts toward family. The transformation timeline that Tate outlined has proven remarkably accurate. He predicted that Harry would gradually abandon his military identity, become increasingly dependent on therapy and emotional processing, and eventually position himself as a victim rather than a leader. The memoir, the Netflix series, and Harry's recent appearances at mental health summits all fit this pattern perfectly.
Detriment it and to sit and insult it and to give away secrets from inside of it and try and paint a negative image of it is going to upset a lot of people, and you have to be prepared for that backlash. You can't say I've done things that upset people, but it's nothing to do with what I've done. It's purely because of my skin color.
What made Tate's analysis particularly cutting was his focus on how Harry's behavior was being deliberately encouraged by forces that benefit from weak, confused men. He suggested that Harry's transformation wasn't accidental, but was the result of systematic pressure designed to break down his independence and self-confidence. The most damaging part of Tate's critique was his prediction that Harry would eventually become so dependent on external validation that he would be unable to make decisions based on his own principles. Looking at Harry's current situation, constantly defending his choices, appearing anxious in interviews, and seeming to need permission for his own opinions, this prediction appears to have been devastatingly accurate.
To a degree, certainly. He certainly lost a lot of the respect of the people and the people who were fans of the royal family. They've certainly lost a lot of their respect, and Meghan has something to do with that. It's certainly the way she talks about the royal family as a whole, the way she talks to him and about him.
Perhaps the most controversial aspect of Tate's predictions involved his analysis of how racism accusations would be weaponized to shut down legitimate criticism. His argument wasn't just that the claims were exaggerated, but that they were strategically deployed to create an untouchable victim status that would protect against accountability. Tate's deconstruction of Meghan's racial narrative was systematic and brutal. He pointed out the timeline inconsistencies, the strategic timing of different claims, and the way racism accusations escalated whenever other criticisms gained traction. His prediction was that this strategy would eventually backfire as people recognized the manipulation involved. The visual evidence Tate presented was impossible to ignore, comparing skin tones and pointing out successful British leaders who were darker than Meghan, but had achieved power without claiming racial persecution. His argument was that if Britain was truly as racist as claimed, these counterexamples couldn't exist. But Tate's criticism went deeper than just questioning specific claims. He predicted that the racism narrative would be used to justify increasingly unreasonable behavior and demands, ultimately alienating even sympathetic observers. The pattern of escalating victim claims, followed by disappointed reactions from former supporters, has played out exactly as he described. The most prescient part of his analysis was his prediction that the racism strategy would eventually become a liability rather than an asset, as people grew tired of being told they couldn't trust their own observations and judgments. Recent polling data and public reaction suggest this shift in opinion is already happening. The signs that Tate predicted would indicate approaching divorce are now visible everywhere, despite official denials. The professional separation that began in 2024 has evolved into something much more significant, with Harry and Meghan living almost completely separate public lives, while maintaining the fiction of marital unity. Tate's prediction about solo appearances has proven particularly accurate.
Not only is she whiter than me, she's whiter than the current Prime Minister of the UK. She's whiter than the Mayor of London. She's not even black.
Why is nobody talking about this?
He claimed that Meghan would begin attending high-profile events without Harry as a way of establishing her independent celebrity status. The pattern of separate red carpet appearances, individual business ventures, and distinct social circles all align with what he described as preparation for eventual separation. The financial arrangements that sources describe also match Tate's predictions about how the divorce would be structured. He argued that Meghan would ensure she had independent revenue streams and business relationships that didn't depend on Harry's royal connections. The emergence of her lifestyle brand and renewed Hollywood networking suggests exactly this kind of strategic preparation. Harry's defensive behavior at recent interviews reveals the psychological pressure that Tate predicted would build as the marriage deteriorated. His nervous explanations about why they appear separately and his over-detailed denials of divorce rumors suggest someone who knows the speculation has legitimate foundations but can't acknowledge reality publicly. The timing of developments continues to follow Tate's predicted pattern. He argued that the separation would be gradual and strategic rather than sudden and emotional, designed to minimize damage to both parties' brands while maximizing their individual opportunities. Tate's survival and continued influence, despite massive deplatforming efforts, has become central to validating his broader cultural analysis. His argument is that Harry and Meghan's story represents a microcosm of larger battles over masculinity, victimhood culture, and media narrative control. The fact that Tate maintained massive influence through alternative channels after being banned from major platforms proved his point about how traditional gatekeepers operate. His claim is that certain viewpoints are suppressed not because they're wrong, but because they threaten established narratives that benefit specific interests. His analysis of the masculinity crisis extends far beyond Harry's personal situation.
And she was trying to inspire in him the warrior. I think a woman sometimes tests a man to say, okay, how much will he put up with? Because they want to see, are you a man or not? What if a man's giving you what will you do? They want to see if you're about it. And she was just testing him and he failed every time. And that's why he's tried to please her.
Tate argues that modern culture deliberately weakens men by teaching them to prioritize emotional validation over practical competence, creating the exact vulnerability he identified in Harry's case. The international response to Tate's commentary reveals the global nature of these cultural battles. His supporters see him as defending necessary truths against coordinated suppression, while critics view him as promoting dangerous ideologies. The intensity of reaction suggests much more is at stake than opinions about one controversial figure. The accuracy of Tate's predictions raises uncomfortable questions about media narratives that extend far beyond one celebrity marriage. His track record on this specific situation demands serious consideration, regardless of personal opinions about his broader worldview. The convergence of his timeline with actual events suggests he understood relationship dynamics that mainstream observers completely missed. This validates his claims about recognizing patterns that others either can't see or are afraid to acknowledge. If someone as controversial as Tate could read this situation so precisely, it raises questions about what other supposedly fringe analyses might be more accurate than mainstream alternatives. The broader cultural conversation about masculinity and media control has gained momentum that will continue evolving independently. The uncomfortable truth is that Tate's analysis of Harry and Meghan has been proven right by events that continue unfolding exactly as he predicted. That accuracy demands serious consideration of his arguments about modern relationships and cultural manipulation. So, what do you think about Tate's predictions coming true? Are his insights about Harry and Meghan's marriage breakdown proof that he understands cultural dynamics better than mainstream analysts, or just lucky guesses from someone with controversial opinions? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this analysis of Tate's shocking accuracy as eye-opening as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.